Today's guest is someone who helps people explore one of the most uncomfortable yet universal experiences for all of us humans, and that is loneliness. Dr. Sylvia K, also known as Dr. Sylvia Kalicinski, is a PhD level therapist, speaker, and mental health advocate who has spent nearly 2 decades helping people understand trauma, emotional patterns, and the deeper messages behind feelings like loneliness and disconnection. Her work blends psychotherapy, mindfulness, and simplified brain science. Thank you for simplifying brain science. It can be a lot. That's really powerful when we get to understand what's really going on.
Yeah.
And help people reconnect with themselves and rewrite the limiting beliefs that often most of the time, I would say, begin in childhood. Dr. Sylvia's passion for this work comes not only from clinical training, but from her own lived experience of growing up feeling deeply alone within a complex family system. So today she uses those experiences to help others transform loneliness into something powerful, which is an invitation to heal, grow, and build more authentic relationships. So it's learning from it instead of avoiding it. In this conversation, we explore loneliness through the lens of childhood, parenting, and the nervous system, and how learning to understand our inner world can change the way we show up for ourselves and also for our children. So Sylvia, it's really nice to have you here.
I am so happy to be here, Mia. Thank you so much for having me. And it's a true gift to be able to speak to you, especially on a deeper level about a topic that affects so many of us, and yet so many of us are too embarrassed to admit it.
Yeah, and I think that's where it all starts. It's to recognize it yourself, what it is really going on. And then
Yes.
it brings acceptance, and it brings work and awareness and healing.
Yes.
And when I was reading more about you and your book, which we'll talk about it later, which is really exciting, and a memory popped up in my head when I first came to Ireland, and I was here during my first year. And I remember I used to say, I've never felt so lonely in a room full of people. Like I've never been surrounded by so many people and yet felt so lonely, because I became so terrified of opening up and then people leaving, because I was living in a hostel for a while. So, you talk to someone and then they leave, and you open up and then they leave, and you start a relationship and then they leave. And it's like that constant,
Yes.
on my own, I don't belong here because I wasn't from here. And it's like that sense of belonging is so, so important.
Yes.
So, and I've heard you say that as well, the loneliness, you felt lonely even though you're surrounded by people.
So true. Yes. And I said almost the same statement, but it was about Los Angeles. I used to live in LA, and that's where I did some clinical training at the C.G. Jung Institute. And even though I was surrounded with friends, I was going to the coolest parties. I was with like the Burning Man people, and I was invited to these like special DJ. My boyfriend at the time was a DJ, and he was like this cool guy that everyone would come to see. I'm living in a city like full of people, and I have never felt so lonely than I did in Los Angeles, because I think, well, for several reasons, but I think there was just this feeling of people don't go too deep. They stay surface. Many people are talking about their career. Like it's, I need to focus on my acting or my filmmaking or my script writing. So many people want to make it in Hollywood or whatever it is their dream. But there's kind of this guarded effect of, I can't get too close to you or invest too much in a relationship because I need to put my career first. And so you would have these like surface level conversations, or to be cool, you couldn't really show like your real feelings. So there was always like this persona that I felt so many people were putting on, even people that didn't want to enter the entertainment industry, people that were in advertising or let's say DJing, music, whatever it is. There was just this feeling of, this is my persona, and we won't get too deep. Or even if they got deep, it felt a little bit artificial, because you can see there's a lot of spiritual consumers in LA. So then it would be like over the top, like, oh, my chakras are saying this. And, or, I don't know, my aura is feeling polluted. It was just too much. I was like, oh my God, I couldn't connect to people, not on an authentic level that I could in other places. So I remember being in a room full of people and feeling I was at the coolest place, but being aware of that, wow, I feel so lonely and so disconnected from everyone here.
And that brings guilt as well, isn't it? Because you feel
Yeah.
like, there's so many people so much worse than you in so much, like really bad
Yes.
situations, and you're feeling entitled to feel bad about having everything, like everybody's dream, you have it, and yet you
Yes.
feel like it's not enough.
Yes, or something's missing. And how ungrateful are you to even be thinking that? I think that's probably one of the most common phenomenons of feeling lonely is that we minimize the experience and then enters comparison. So many people have it so far worse than me. People are experiencing significant trauma or loss. And here I am
Mm.
complaining that I feel lonely. So we minimize and compare. And then in that, feel even more lonely because then we don't even give ourselves permission to just honor a natural, universal human experience.
So, what would be the right way to deal with this feeling? Because it's a feeling,
Yes.
not an
So,
actual
yeah.
thing.
So I try not to say there's a right or wrong way because I think in essence, there really is no right or wrong way. Everyone has their path. I think there's a more gentle way, a more helpful way, maybe a less shameful way. And my number one place to start is to name it, which most of us are so scared to name the feeling. To name a feeling, especially like I feel lonely, comes with a lot of shame, a lot of feelings of embarrassment, and then there's this stigma of I must be a loser or a failure or something's wrong with me. Or as you had mentioned earlier, I'm being ungrateful, I'm being dramatic, extra, whatever you want to call it. And I've also seen a lot of people are not even aware that they're feeling lonely because of that stigma. They don't want to name it. So they'll say, I'm feeling irritable. I'm feeling anxious. I don't feel myself. I'm feeling a little bit lost. And I think irritability, feeling disconnected from yourself and others, feeling quite agitated, restless, those are all symptoms of loneliness. And loneliness can come in different forms. Emotional loneliness, it could be like, as you mentioned, this feeling of not belonging, that you're lonely because you miss that person that you used to feel close to. So there's different levels, but I think, in my book particularly, I try to bring focus to the emotional loneliness that many of us experienced in childhood, connected to childhood emotional neglect. And the term seems a bit dramatic, like childhood emotional neglect. Like childhood emotional neglect is your emotional needs, your primary emotional needs, which are to feel safe, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel a sense of belonging, and to feel loved. When those needs are not met by your caregivers, whether you're adopted or born into a biological family, that really impacts your sense of self as a child. And to survive that, you learn different adaptive strategies. So if you were raised in an affluent family, you had everything taken care of, wonderful home, school, your parents worked hard, maybe they were even more affluent, they traveled, you had nannies, etc. But they weren't able to really acknowledge maybe your sadness. Maybe when they traveled or you were left alone with the nanny, you felt sad. But if you told your mother, your dad, I miss you, I'm sad, you have everything you could ever want. How ungrateful are you? You should be grateful for all the things you have because so many kids don't have what you want. So that child learns my feelings are not important, or my feelings are a burden, or if I share how I truly feel, I will make mom or dad angry and I will lose that sense of connection. So I think it's really important to acknowledge when our emotional needs are not met. And some parents, it's not always intentional. They're not conscious that they're hurting the child. They think they're doing the best, but they're missing that emotional attunement. And we see it even more today with not every, let me say most parents
Phones.
on their phones.
Yeah.
I'm working. It's a business email. No, it's my boss. No, honey. Or, or they're swiping on Instagram. You can't have your iPad because screen time is not good. And the parents, and so we're missing even just that eye contact, that simple, basic human mirroring gets lost. So when we experience that childhood emotional neglect, I think that definitely affects our sense of self in so many ways. And then depending on your character type or whatever environment you were raised in, you might either become a people pleaser, a fawner, maybe you become someone that's hyper independent. Maybe you do become a loner and you're like, I don't need anyone. I prefer to be by myself. So I think if we can, two things, name the loneliness. And if that's difficult, to acknowledge, okay, I'm feeling irritable, or this is anxiety, or this is anger, etc. And then you can take it a next step further, going into the, so I have a heart method. So H is honor your emotions. E is explore your family system. Where in my family did I might feel invisible, or what did I learn about belonging in my family, or how did I learn to feel seen in my family? So you explore your family patterns to bring more context, because with loneliness, we think it's just us, as if we did something wrong or it's our fault. But when you start to look at your family system, you understand this is connected to patterns of relationships and survival mechanisms that have been in my family for at least 3 generations.
That's so powerful. How do we bring more awareness? Because awareness is key to understand that. So, how do we bring that awareness with our children without
Yes,
pushing it too far? And
yes,
also, I have another question that links
sure.
with this as well. Is it possible as parents to avoid completely childhood trauma for our children?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I was like, let me make it simple.
End of
No.
the episode.
Because I think that's another, I would say, common misunderstanding about trauma is a lot of people think like it has to be this really big, dramatic thing to qualify as trauma. And in EMDR, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and this trauma informed intervention for therapy, the EMDR Association describes trauma in this new way, which I really feel is applicable to so many of us. Trauma is anything that felt too much for too long, or too little for too long, or too much too soon.
Okay.
And so we as parents cannot prevent our children from experiencing something too much too soon. If you look at the news, right? That's a lot too much too soon if a child sees what's already on television,
Yeah.
especially the news. Some things happen that just go on for too long, and it was just too much. Sometimes at school, beyond our own parenting. Sometimes a child experiences bullying for too long, and it was just too much. Cyber bullying, too much for too long, or too little for too long. Maybe it, we could even look at weather in certain places in the world. Too little sun for too long.
Yeah,
That affects your mood.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I think trauma does come in many different forms. And I think probably a parent who's experienced their own trauma, of course, well, hopefully we would hope would want to prevent their child from feeling that. But I think trauma can come in so many forms, and there's no way to prevent your child from experiencing
Yeah.
something traumatic.
And what do you think, like, just by having conversations with our children, is that how it helps to connect with them and also bring that focus or attention or awareness, as we mentioned, to the daily feelings that they're
Yes.
experiencing?
Yes. I mean, you just nailed it right there. Attention to the daily feelings that they're experiencing. I think one of the biggest, if I may say, handicaps of parents and adults is that many of us were not taught by our own parents how to safely name our own feelings. It wasn't modeled. So many of us as parents now in our generation are trying to figure it out for the first time. For example, like my father, I remember if I would cry and I would be upset, he's like, I'm sorry. I hope I don't offend anyone. My father's Polish, so I use his accent. He's like, stop it crying. Why are you crying? You need to be strong. And I will never forget. I was 8 years old. I was like, Daddy, crying is good. It helps you get the emotions out. It's healthy. And I was like, okay, I was definitely born a therapist because,
You,
I had some awareness. But, my father told me I always had to be strong, be strong. That was the way to cope with feelings. Well, that's the only way he knew, and it helped him. So how do I teach I have a son, and he cries, he's passionate about football. I'll see that, he tries to hold it in because of the social stigma, right? Even in 2025, we still have that stigma of, boys don't cry, suck it up, be
yeah.
strong. And I won't embarrass him in front of other people, but if he'll come to me and I'll ask him, do you want to cry? Do you feel like crying? He's like, yes. I said, it makes absolute sense to cry right now. It's okay to cry. It's human. It's your body releasing the stress, and then I'll cry, right? And I think just giving our children permission to feel. And one of my favorite statements that I try to teach my adult clients is, When you're experiencing something yourself that you might even be minimizing or gaslighting, because many of us will gaslight our own feelings. Oh, I shouldn't be feeling this way. Oh, I'm being so dramatic. Oh, I shouldn't let this bother me. Well, it is bothering you. So let's just give yourself permission. It makes sense that this thing that's happening in your life is bothering you because it's something that's really important to you. Or it makes sense that this would really bother you because something went against your values. Makes sense that you would feel sad. It makes sense that you would feel angry. You don't have to blame the person. How dare them do that? No, it makes sense that you feel sad. It makes sense that you feel angry. And so modeling that, well, doing that first for yourself. You cannot teach a child how to manage their emotions if you cannot name your own emotions for yourself. How can you teach someone something that you're not doing? And kids are so smart. If you try to teach it without really doing it yourself, they're like, yeah, not sticking. They'll pick up on what you do or
Not
don't
what
do.
you say.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think it's just slowing this whole process down and starting again, going back to my heart method. Let's just honor the emotion. Emotion, I like to break down the word is E-motion. And emotion is energy in motion. And that energy is a signal. It's giving you something. When we're hangry, right? We're angry because we're hungry. We have low blood sugar. That anger is saying, hey, you've gone way past your blood sugars. You need to pause and refuel. Maybe when you're feeling really sad about something, that sadness is giving you a message of, hey, this person or this thing was really important to you. Or, you know, this thing or person that you had that you don't have anymore, you're missing that sense of connection. That connection was important to you. Let's just honor that. That this sadness doesn't mean that I'm going to stay stuck in the pits of despair. This sadness says, wow, I didn't realize how much that person actually made an impact. I didn't realize how much that person actually meant to me until the sadness showed up. Whoa, you just turned sadness into not just honoring an emotion, but honoring a person, a relationship that meant something to you.
Yeah, that makes so much sense then when it links with what you said earlier about using loneliness to connect with ourselves and understand who we are and what's
Yes.
important to us and what we need to heal. And when you
Yes.
connect with yourself and your emotions and you extract really the essence of the emotion and the learning and okay, what's this telling me? This is helping me stay alive. This is helping me survive. This is helping me connect with people. This is
Yes.
helping me understand and discover what's my passion and then
Yes.
find a purpose for my life. So it's really when you stop and really connect with yourself. And I suppose that's what you were talking about when you talk about loneliness as a learning opportunity.
Absolutely. And I just want to be completely transparent. When I first started writing the book proposal for this book, I remember my book coach was saying, just remember, just be yourself when you're writing. And I will be so honest with you right now and say, like, what do you mean be yourself? I've been a chameleon my whole life. That is how I learned to survive. I learned to people please and figure out who I needed to be to survive in the environment. I was born in the United States as a first generation American. Parents were Polish immigrants. My father and mother were undocumented. My mother died when I was 2. My father raised me and my brother. Unfortunately, my father used alcohol to cope with his own grief. So there was always this like unpredictability. So I was like, I need to figure out how to way to belong in school and fit in and find the resources so that I can survive. And so I just want to speak to that person who's listening that's like, okay, we always say, be yourself, connect with yourself. A lot of people don't know how. I didn't. Even after years of therapy, I was like, well, I've been doing that. I think I'm connecting to myself, but I didn't know how to be myself. And so then I remember when I first sent out the book proposal, it got rejected. And I realized I need to rewrite this and speak from my personal story and bring in some client stories to make this book more authentic because it was so surface level. And so I think I just, again, want to recognize that some people don't know even how to start or where to start. Like when you say, like, you got to learn to love yourself. Like, what does that mean? Where do you start? And so I think something as simple and as difficult as it is, when we start to learn just how to name an emotion, this is anger. Okay. This is frustration. oh my gosh, I'm feeling, oh, this is sadness, because many of us too have learned to intellectualize our feelings. So we're up here in our heads like, la 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 la, I'll analyze. Well, I am upset because something happened and that goes against my values. Well, if I really drop, it's like, oh, I really feel angry. Oh, this is anger. So many of us don't even know how to name our feelings because we've been surviving on intellectualizing them or completely minimizing them, compartmentalizing them. So I think just by slowing it down and getting more curious of how to name your emotions, but also maybe get, as you know, your podcast suggests, it's like rediscovering childhood. Maybe it's going back, as scary as it might be, going back to your childhood and connecting to that inner child that didn't have their feelings mirrored, that maybe no one was modeling how to acknowledge their feelings, or, they didn't feel that sense of belonging, or maybe they felt criticized. So if you can connect to that child, not blame your parents, but just connect to the child and say, it makes sense that you would feel scared because your mom or your dad constantly criticized you, right? Or it makes sense that you would be scared to be seen by others because when you were seen by your family, you were judged or blamed. Or it makes sense that you would feel sad because you didn't have anybody to play with. So when you learn also slowly how to reconnect to that child and get curious, like what were, as I have in my journal, I have a prompt. So I have a
There's a
companion
lot
book
of
with,
compassion in what you're
yeah,
saying. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like, what were you never allowed to say or feel as a child?
Mm.
Even just starting that with that, what was I never allowed to feel or say as a child? That's a step to starting to connect to yourself, to get more curious. And yes, as you said, it's like it's turning towards that child with compassion and acknowledging maybe for the first time ever what your experience was. We're not trying to get that acknowledgement or validation from our parents or any other members of our family. We're trying to build a bridge from our adult self back to our inner child so we can give that inner child something that maybe was never available or that our parents couldn't give us. Not because they were bad, just because they didn't have the resources or the knowledge how to do it. So I think a lot of this work involves reparenting, but just beginning first with like acknowledging I was a child before and there were certain needs I had. What was I not allowed to say or feel? Right there already creates a connection, which is what this book is really about, is not just accepting an invitation to get to know yourself on a deeper level, but creating a deeper connection with yourself, maybe for the first time ever.
Yeah. And I think there's a turning point in life when you are able to step out of yourself, outside of yourself, and observe and talk to your inner child. And you detach yourself from those limiting beliefs and really powerful thoughts that shape your decisions and your beliefs, really, for any interaction you have, for anything you do. Oh, they're not going to like me. No one's going to listen to my podcast. Who's going to buy my book? Who's
Yes,
going to do these?
exactly.
Why would I do these? Who cares about, and then you're just waiting for rejection, waiting for people to
Yes.
confirm that all your beliefs, that you're right. 'Cause we all want to be right.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think what you're
Confirmation bias.
saying is really exactly. And what you're saying, I think it's really that step towards, okay, what's really happening. And that's why I love the name of this podcast, Rediscovering Childhood, because it's really, okay, you've always done things this way, you've always had these thoughts, but why? Just stop and think. Why? And that's where it all starts. So that prompt you just mentioned there, I think it's really powerful because that's a very simple, uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and difficult, but simple way to start learning who you really are, what you really want, without any limitations coming from this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for me, I think it was problems. I had every problem solved. I've never had the time or the space to solve my own problems. So then when I discovered that I was able to solve my own problems, and I was able
Wow.
to tell my inner child, you can do it. And that really made me reflect as well. And I want to know what you think about that. As parents, we want to make our children's life as easy as possible, not know
Guilty. Guilty.
100%, not knowing that actually there is a lot of trauma coming from that, because then we're not
Yes.
letting them develop their own self.
Absolutely. I think, it comes from a place of I want to save you from having to deal with the discomfort that I dealt with. But then again, like that, in a way, you're kind of creating another cage. And in a way, it's enmeshment, right? If I can solve this problem, make it easier so you don't suffer, then you're not giving the child their own self agency. And then it could actually create even more insecurity for the child because they might feel like overwhelmed to try to figure out by themselves because maybe the parent will criticize them or they're going to come in and do it. And and then yeah, again, that enmeshment, it's not two people, it's one. And that can lead to other challenges in the future. So yeah, I'm definitely
Yeah,
guilty with my
100%.
son.
Yeah,
I tried to
it's just
catch
hard
myself.
finding the balance. Like you don't want to.
Yes.
No, you solve your own problems. It's your problem, your solution. But it's
Yeah.
finding that balance. It's really tricky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, What is inner child?
Yes. Okay. So the inner child, I mean, here's a more simple way maybe to say it. Each and every one of us, whether you're male, female, fluid, whatever gender pronoun you want to use, but we were all a child once. And that child still lives within us and is still listening and is still participating in a subconscious slash unconscious level. In somatic psychology, people would say the body, our physical body, is our inner child. The way, for example, when I was an adolescent, I remember seeing a couple photos. I'd always be hunched over. I had this terrible posture because I literally, my body was protecting my heart. My father was struggling with alcohol. My father and brother were arguing a lot. I had different stepmoms coming in. So I just learned, I was like, okay, I need to protect my heart. So the body can sometimes manifest as a child. But my understanding, especially working in therapy, is that the child is always listening, just like the body is always listening. And I think for many people who have experienced significant trauma, but particularly CPTSD, that's complex post traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD is the type of trauma that was ongoing, that for the child felt like it was never ending and that there was no way out. And so many adults who experience CPTSD often experience what we call learned helplessness. So they feel like, you know, I don't really have a choice in this. I don't have autonomy or, this is the way it is. And even though there is a solution there and they can change their life or make significant behavior changes, unconsciously, they're still stuck as that child thinking, well, I don't have a choice. I don't have power. I don't have autonomy to change the situation. But whether you experience significant trauma or just, as we mentioned earlier, these other forms of trauma, little t trauma or big T trauma, that child is still within you because our memories are within us. But again, some people don't have any memories because their childhoods were so traumatic. But even if you don't remember, even if it's difficult to even think about the inner child, that energy is still within your body. And I think it's just really important. Again, let's go back to the word honor. It's just honoring. I was a child once. And even though I'm an adult, that child is still listening. And that child is still wanting a relationship with me. And sometimes I think, depending on the person, we've learned to adapt certain environments that the only way to survive was that we just disconnect ourselves from that child. Because sometimes allowing yourself to feel connected to that child is just too painful, brings up too many uncomfortable feelings or emotions or memories. But yes, I think the inner child is basically the younger version of yourself still within your psyche, in your body, in your mind, that's still listening.
And is
And
that the
one,
part of you? Yeah.
yeah,
Is that the part of you that's looking for love and safety? So when you're in
love,
a
safety, and
relationship,
belonging.
okay.
Yeah.
And when you're in relationships or with your own children, I suppose you've also created coping mechanisms to protect the need or the lack of belonging, love, or
Yes.
safety. And
Yes.
that creates limiting beliefs. So, how much comes from that inner child, and how do you connect, identify those beliefs?
Yes. I think before we can answer that, identifying the beliefs, I think it's important to understand we have intrinsic human needs. Like as a human, we have the need to exist, right? And one of the ways that that need is acknowledged and recognized that I exist is that you see me. Making eye contact with me gives my brain the signal, you see me? Oh, I'm alive. I exist. And so that gives my brain that sense, literally the limbic system, it gives that signal, okay, we are connecting. I exist. I'm human, but I am in connection. So that tells my brain I am more safe because we're connected. When you don't look in my eyes and you're not paying attention to me, then all of a sudden I don't know if you're paying attention, but deep down I'm like, do I exist? Am I even significant? So that deeply affects us. We have the right to exist. We have the right to feel heard, right? If a baby is crying and you ignore that cry, usually the baby goes into despair. If you continue to ignore the cry, but the right to feel heard, the right to feel seen, the right to take up space, the right to feel safety and belonging. So we have these intrinsic needs wired in us. I also think it's helpful just to do a quick overview. We have 6 human needs as a human that also affects our behavior. We have the need for certainty. We have the need for variety. We have the need for love and belonging. We have the need for we have the need for growth, and we have the need for contribution. It's actually 6 human needs. So we have all these needs wired into our psyche, but I think that intrinsic one, I exist, you see me. And I think in many different households, children didn't feel seen. Maybe they didn't even feel like they had the right to take up space. Maybe there was this internalized feeling of, oh, I'm a burden because your micro facial expressions are.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I do it to my son if I'm really stressed and he's asking me a question. I'm like, "Oh, love, I have to, I have a call in 5 minutes, right? I have a podcast. Here's your dinner." He's like, "Mommy, can we watch this show?" "Yes, we can watch 5 minutes of it, but I have to get ready for the podcast." Right? So even me, like sometimes I'm more, infringing on, and he learns to adapt. He's already learned to fawn. Sometimes he's like, "Okay, Mom, you're stressed. I'll tell you later." I'm like, "Oh gosh." Not even a therapist can protect their own child from this. But, I'm sure he feels that sometimes like, "Oh, my needs are less important than mommy's work. So I'm going to learn how to not say what I really need right now, or I'll delay asking for what I need because she's busy, she's working." Etc.
Um,
When
yeah.
these needs are not met, like the need to exist, right? The right, intrinsic rights, we have intrinsic rights and we have human needs. When these intrinsic rights and human needs are not met, we start to adapt self-limiting beliefs, right? So my son might adapt like, I'm not as important as mommy's work, right? Which the irony is that's one of my self-limiting beliefs is I'm not important. That's something in my family system. It's what I later call a pain point. Like, okay, I'm not important because, for example, in my situation, my father had to move to Kazakhstan and I ended up living alone my junior and senior year of high school. So at 16 and 17 years old, I was living all alone,
Wow.
which deeply impacted my sense of self because I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel a sense of belonging. I didn't feel important enough that he didn't take me. I don't like to use the word left me. Yeah, but it's true. He left me. He abandoned me. So I have that pain point. Like I wasn't important. I wasn't important enough, or you don't care, or I'm not special. And then unconsciously, sometimes even in these like small behaviors with my son, work is important. Like I could pass that on, and that could be a generational self-limiting belief. But you say, okay, if this is my self-limiting belief, how could I actually consciously say something different to my son? So I could say, you are so important to me. And the show that you want to watch with me is really important. After I finish the podcast, can we watch the show together? Or if I can't do it after the podcast, can we make time this Saturday? So then he's like, oh, you did hear me. You did see my facial expression when I was sad. I am important. And most important as a parent is following up, because sometimes we make empty promises.
Yeah.
So when you follow up, it's okay, I am important because now we're doing the thing that I needed and asked for, and I'm important enough for you to follow through and for us to connect and share this moment together.
Yeah, that's so. Could you go through so that you have the intrinsic needs, the
Yes.
intrinsic rights,
Yes.
and the human needs,
Yes.
and that's how we're wired as human beings.
I think so.
when
I'm
we're
sure
born.
people can argue and have
Yeah.
different opinions, but I think that
Sorry, no, I was just going to say it makes so much sense.
yes, 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 yes. And I think sometimes we unconsciously forget that first intrinsic need is the right to take up space, the right to exist. And we unconsciously deny people that intrinsic right. Examples, homeless people. I don't know what the appropriate PC word is to use, but people that are unhomed, or asking for money. Often people will just walk by them. I'm not even going to look at that person asking for money. And we're denying them the right that, okay, you don't even exist, you don't take up space. You can look at the person and say, no, sorry, at least some kind of eye contact or acknowledgement. But it doesn't have to be that dramatic. Someone's talking to you and even it's not meant to, it's not ill intended, or you have an eye watch or something buzzing, someone's having a deep conversation with you and you just, it's a reaction. You look at your phone to see, oh, there's a message, and you've broken that deep contact and connection with that person. And they feel like, oh, I guess I don't even feel like I have the right to exist or take up space because your iPhone or whatever device you're looking at is more important than me, which then impacts that human need for significance. Like, oh, I'm not significant in your life. And look at my body language. I'm like, oh, like you get smaller. And that just reinforces a self-limiting belief, because then you'll project it. It'll start to become confirmation bias. Well, I'm not important for this person. And something else happens later that day. Well, yeah, I'm not important for that person. And then you start to believe this idea.
Yeah. And I can see with technology now, it's just gone to a whole other level where connection is just not a thing anymore.
It's really reinforcing something that I learned by a female Buddhist monk. She labeled it constant partial attention, CPA. We are all suffering from this constant partial attention. It's like email, bzz. Oh, I got a text message. Bzz. There's a tweet or whatever we call it, whatever the X thing. Instagram gave me alert. Bzz. The doorbell rang. There's UPS.
And we call it multitasking.
Yeah, and it's wreaking.
Justify it.
Yeah. Not only is it terrible for human connection, but it's terrible for our nervous system. And so, yeah, it's really affecting our ability to connect, not only with other people, but ourselves, because our breathing gets short, we get distracted, it's hard to regulate. It's so much information. We are all bombarded with so much information daily. And lately, a lot of scary information.
Yeah. And then we're in a loop, in a cycle, because we're so overwhelmed. We're not able to we're not regulated. So we can't respond to our children, we just react. And then we give them devices because they react to our reaction. So we give them devices to just put them away. And then they feel overwhelmed as well. And like, how do you get out of here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nature.
Yeah. Yes, nature. Oh my goodness. I mean, I make it a point every weekend. I go up into the mountains. I leave my phone at home during the day. Well, that's a lie, because sometimes when I'm skiing, like I'll have the phone in there for safety, for protection, but it's such a big difference on how much I use my phone when I'm up in the mountains. Or I think one of the things I try to do, but even if I'm at home, like a little quick dog walk, is try not to be on my phone. But today I was answering emails. There was no enjoyment in that walk through the park because I'm looking at the phone, emailing, stopping, my dog's pulling. There was no connection with nature and my dog, and it was stressful. So I think, yes, you might have a job or position where you can't leave your phone behind, but maybe it's just putting it on do not disturb for 5 minutes. Maybe it's making a conscious decision when you have lunch or dinner with a friend or your family, we leave the devices in a drawer. But I think, yes, that constant partial attention is not only wreaking havoc on our nervous system, but it's really difficult to even connect with ourselves too. Because as you said, we're so overwhelmed, which just leads to more loneliness. And there's a statistic that said, so not only are we overwhelmed with all of the information and feeling more disconnected, but there's this hurried sense. You gotta rush, this hurried sense.
Yeah.
Running out of time. There's so much to do. And we are 67% less likely to stop and help someone who's asking for help when we're in a hurry.
Wow.
And I've noticed it myself. I'm like, oh gosh, I am in a hurry. There was a woman one time, I was in a hurry to go meet somebody else, and she had stopped. She was like, do you know the gate code? And she was asking me in French, and she was speaking so fast. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm in a rush to meet my friend. And honestly, I didn't know who she was. So for safety reasons, I wasn't going to give her the gate code. But I do think,
Yeah,
that
it's
it
just
just,
inconvenient and it's distracting you from what we think it's important because we're in this busy world where you need to do. And then we
yeah,
forget
yeah,
what are the really important things.
yes, yes.
Things that
And I
feel
think the hardest thing is when you get so conditioned to this, when it's a part of your day to day life, then your nervous system gets conditioned to it. Well, this is the way it is. It's really hard to all of a sudden then unplug and do what? You want me to meditate? I don't know. I can't meditate. My brain is used to like releasing all this stress cortisol. Like I need to keep going. So I think, just again, going back to honoring, let's honor the stress. Let's honor the emotion. Let's honor the anger, the frustration, the burnout, the overwhelm. I think a lot of us could have learned to, again, minimize the overwhelm. Well, people have it so much worse. Yeah.
And as you said, you put it away for 5 minutes and then notice that everything is still okay. The world did not collapse just because we
Yes.
put our phone away. And I'm so guilty. So. There's always one more email, one
Yes.
more post, one more message, one more picture, one more this,
Yes.
one more that, because you think, oh, I'm going to do this email and then I'll have no emails left. 5 emails and then you get 15 emails.
Yes.
Well, they're
Yes.
all replying and it's multiplying, and then you post, I'll just do a post on Instagram and I'm done for today. No, because then you have to interact with the comments and you have to share on your stories and you have to add a link to these. And then someone is going to send an inquiry for another job, and like it's not just one more thing and I'm done. So
No,
it's
you're
just
right.
learning, and I'm saying this. I'm really talking to myself here.
Yes. Yes.
Just
I think you're talking to a lot of people that can relate.
yeah.
I caught myself doing that a lot. And I remember pausing and saying, this is coming from one of my pain points of not feeling enough. And that's the A in my heart method. So H is honor the emotions. E is explore your family patterns. A is acknowledge the pain point. R is rewrite the narrative. And T is turn within and develop the tools to regulate your nervous system. So in step A, the third step, when you can acknowledge your pain points, I'm not enough or I'm not doing enough, then you can see how it manifests in your work. Just one more email. Okay, well then there's, three more emails and then it just keeps going. At one moment, it's learning to pause and take responsibility. Aha, this is that pain point that I feel like I'm not enough. And then the next step, the rewrite of the narrative, my preferred narrative is I am enough. I did enough. I did enough today. And there'll be some days I do more and there'll be some days I do less, but right now I am enough. And I'm enough to pause and give this energy that I can save to connect with my child, to be present so that I'm not absolutely exhausted. There's one thing I remember hearing one time, a woman measuring her day with like spoons. She said, think about your day. You're only given 8 spoons, and there's certain things that take. Have you heard this one
No, no.
that takes a lot of energy? So if you're going to send client emails, maybe that's going to be 2 spoons. But then you're doing a podcast. Maybe that's 2 more spoons. And then there's something else you need to write, a Substack. That's 1 spoon. You've got 3 spoons left. Are you going to save at least 1 for yourself, 1 for your child? And maybe leave 1 as a reserve so you don't start the next day with 0 spoons. So I think also, you know, I think we forget our own boundaries with energy. And if you have a pain point of I'm not enough or it's never enough, you end up giving a lot more than what you really have. And then it's almost like you're in the negative. It's like you're spending more money than you actually have. And then you're burnt out, you're exhausted. And then the people around you are like, Mommy, are you okay?
No.
Save those spoons, save your energy. And I think another thing to remind yourself is your attention right now in the world is the most valuable resource that there is. And time is the most valuable non-renewable resource. So how you choose to spend your time and how you choose to direct and give your attention are the 2 most valuable commodities you have. And we often give them away for free or are quite discounted. So I think maybe another way to battle the loneliness epidemic and the burnout epidemic is, okay, let me take more accountability for my own time and attention. Let me treat it as gold as these gold bars that I have, I'm not going to just give these gold bars to anything and everyone. And I think if you take more authority over your attention and your time and become more choosy of where you're going to give it, and I think for me, one of the best bodyguards in life is remember your values. Right now, just ask
Mm.
yourself, what are the three most important things in your life to you today? What are the three things that give you the most sense of purpose and meaning in your life? And if three is too much, let's just one. What is the most important thing in your life right now? And whatever that answer is, that is an important value. And so, with any decision that you make to spend your time and energy on, let that one thing that you said is the most, like for me, one of the most important things to me is peace of mind. When I don't have peace of mind, that affects my son, my husband, my clients, everything. So sometimes I even forget. I forget that that's something important to me, and I make choices that rob me of my peace of mind.
Yeah. What are your non-negotiables?
Oh, gosh. Are we talking about like life, parenting, relationships?
Yeah,
Like,
live parenting, like for you to make sure. I think that can really link with what you just said on a more specific way too. So what are the things that I think it links with setting boundaries?
yeah, yeah.
Because, you know, we say, well, take time for yourself, take time for yourself.
Hmm.
But, and then linking with values as well.
Yes. I mean, the first thing that came up to my mind, a non negotiable, is if I've ever sensed or caught someone intentionally trying to hurt somebody else. You know, if they said a comment that was not true or said something that was personal and confidential, and they said it in a with a way with intent to hurt, or an insult or degrade, that's a non-negotiable. Like, hey, like,
Yeah.
I if you're upset, let's talk about that. But no need to intently hurt someone or create a campaign schmear or schmear, I remember dyslexic, a schmear campaign against someone because your need to feel seen is not being met. So I think that's definitely a non-negotiable. I think another thing that really bothers me sometimes, if you really can help someone and you're able to, but you consciously choose not to. I mean, again, some people may not be able or may not choose not to help because they're protecting their time and their energy. But I think, again, when it's kind of done with malintent because you want to see that person suffer, that I'm like, no, non-negotiable. What's your non-negotiable?
My non-negotiable. Yeah, it links a little bit with that bullying. And even if it comes from parenting, I'm not judging, not intentionally.
Yes.
But when it comes from excessive screen usage
Yes.
on giving screens to children, my kids are watching TV right now, so they're
Yeah.
not coming in jumping on top of me.
Yeah.
But when it's excessive from very young ages,
Yes.
it triggers me. It really triggers me. And again, I don't know the circumstances of that. I have friends telling me, Mireya, you don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know what happened this morning. You don't know how much
Yeah.
Peppa Pig that mom had to watch today. But that really triggers me because I feel that need for connection, for communication, for movement, for outdoor play, for
Yes.
fun for the children. When I see, you know, in a restaurant, all the kids straight away, phone, 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 don't talk to me. I can,
Yeah.
and I've gone to parents when I don't see a screen and I go to the parents and I say, it's so nice to see parents playing with their children at the table. It just
Yeah.
well,
So nice. As you were talking about that bullying, um, and also just like just that screen overusage of screen, it reminded me one non-negotiable for me is humiliation. When I see
yeah,
parents use humiliation to try to teach their children something, or kids trying to humiliate each other, I have this thing inside of me that's like,
yeah.
I was at my son's school and there was two boys making fun of another kid and trying to humiliate him for his jacket. And I was like, don't say anything, Sylvia, don't say anything. And then I said something. I was like, real confidence doesn't require you trying to make someone else feel bad so that you can look good. And they looked at me like,
What?
whatever, little or old middle-aged woman. Like, but what was interesting though, they looked at me and the other kid was like, no, 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 they're joking. I was like, it doesn't sound like they're joking. And then the other guy was
Jokes
like,
are
well,
supposed to be
yeah,
fun.
yeah. He makes fun of me like that. So I got a little bit uncomfortable, but it was
Yeah.
just that moment of like, hey, like that doesn't feel good. But it was that humiliation and then no one was standing up for, but sometimes I could make it worse. But
Yeah, stepping up, I think it's important. And when they see us adults saying something, I would say whatever. If we're at the playground and I see someone, another child saying something, or I would talk to them. But then I try to, even we had outside, my kids were playing with some boys outside and they came to me and said, Mommy, they're saying F this, F that, and that they have phones and they're 9 year olds, 8, 9 year olds. They have phones and they're on Snapchat and on TikTok and all of these. So I went there and I said, what is going on? And they're like, "Oh, they don't wanna play with us." So I was like, okay, so what is with the F this, F that?" And they're like, "Oh, no, we didn't mean to." I'm like, "Yeah, but not meaning to doesn't mean not saying it. So if you want to play and you also want to play, why are you not just playing? You have to." It's like this macho, you have to mark
Yeah.
your territory and you use certain words or say certain things to make you look cool. And I said, "And what's with the phone and Snapchat?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "You're not supposed to be on Snapchat." "Oh, my mom lets me be on Snapchat." Okay, so what? And I had a conversation with the kids, and it was really nice because I had a conversation with the kids. I was just talking to them, "What do you do with this?" And you know what it does to your brain, and explaining all this. And then eventually they went off to play. And then my son said, "Mommy, you made them better." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh my God." They played for a whole hour football together. It was
oh,
amazing. And I'm like, "Oh
that's what
my
we need
God."
more of is
And it's
play.
connection. I
Yes.
connected with them, I wasn't blaming them, I had a
Yes, that's the
conversation
key.
with them, and I told them, "I think you're amazing, and you're better than that. And you can go play
Oh,
football, have lots of fun, and be kind to each other, because that's what being amazing really means."
yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'm amazing, so I'm gonna be kind." And then they went
Yes.
off and played, and it's just having that, and for me, that's what an educator should be all about. It's
Yes,
just
yes,
caring and planting those seeds
yes.
for them
And
to
you
grow.
you did something so important for their intrinsic right. I see you, and
Mm,
you're important. You're amazing. I see you.
yeah, not because of what you're saying, but because I see through that. And
Yeah,
I know that's not who you are.
yeah.
That's just a facade, as they say,
Yes.
to just a
Yeah,
mask to protect you from not being seen at home, probably.
yeah, yeah.
That's really powerful. You really said so many things that made me think and reconsider things. And I hope everybody listening does the same because, like I always say, it's so hard to be a parent. It's the hardest job in the world. And it doesn't matter how hard you try. Sometimes, in fact, the harder you try, the worse it gets.
Yes. Yes.
So it's just, I think, having as much information as possible, then you can make better decisions that will benefit everybody and will be good
Yes.
for everybody. And you can learn together and from each other. But
Yes.
we'll never get it perfect because
No,
that's
we'll
impossible.
never. But I think one thing that can make it more enjoyable, or at least let's say one thing that could be more helpful for a parent is keeping that connection to their own inner child. Because if you can create a connection with your own inner child, I think you increase your empathy and compassion for that. I don't want to say innocence, but just for that more vulnerable part of you. I think sometimes as adults we forget sometimes how scary it is to be a child, right? You don't have the same freedoms and autonomy and choices, and things are decided for you, and your brain is not fully developed to be able to have the language to communicate your feelings and needs, and there can be a lot of things that can feel overwhelming. But I think if you can maintain some kind of connection to your own inner child, and with that, hopefully, like you had mentioned earlier with the boy, it's like create that connection with the child and create that sense of play. Because if you can create that sense of play with your inner child, that not only creates connection with yourself, but then you have that connection with your child, because children develop trust and confidence through play, not through teaching. I mean, teaching can come in different ways, but not through lectures, not through reading a book. Children and animals develop trust and connection and confidence through play.
I think I want to end the episode here because that's the
Yeah.
most powerful thing. It's the most powerful tool, and we underestimate the power of play. It's at any age, for everybody, for everybody. It's so
Yes.
powerful. It connects everybody, it connects you with you,
Yes.
the world, and it makes everything worth it. It makes life
Yes.
worth living because it's
Yes.
fun.
Yes. And so for anyone who's listening who might feel a little bit too serious or doesn't know how to play or has forgotten how to play, I have an acronym called SMOJI. So SMOJE, and that stands for a small moment of joy expressed. And so it can look something as simple as like, I'll be like this, ooh, just like making like a funny movement, right? Doing something like silly. And you're like, okay. Or, let's say you love ice cream or I don't know, you love pickles or whatever. Like and you eat it, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
like, oh, or if it's a cup of tea and you're like, just in that moment, I'm going to express joy that I'm having this moment. But I think something also with the body, some like kind of movement, a little dance, something silly can not only help release that serotonin, but if a child is watching, they're like, oh, my parent can play, I can play. It creates a kind of lighthearted spirit. So, I used to have this, I called it the crab dance in my kitchen. I just like kind of dance, like I just kind of move back and forth, like horizontally, and I'll make these funny things. And sometimes my husband's like, what are you doing? I'm
What?
like, it's a spontaneous moment of joy. So embrace the weirdness. And if that feels too uncomfortable, just something that creates a little moment just to say, okay, I really appreciate the sun hitting my face right now. And I'm just gonna just smile, just allow the corners of my mouth to like move and just say, okay, in this moment I'm gonna express a little bit of joy. Because without expressing joy and learning how to tune into it, there's no way you're going to be able to do true trauma work or any healing. Joy and play unlock
Everything.
so much. Yes, unlock like unbounded potential within you.
Do you know what I do when I'm really in those moments where you're like, what's the point of everything? The world, and you look at what's
Yeah,
going on and
yeah,
future, and like I can't tell my kids to go to college because like who knows if college is gonna be, like.
yeah, yeah.
And then when I drive around and I go around, I try to look for people enjoying little things. Like the other day, for example, it was
Ah,
raining, it was miserable, it was so bad in roadworks. And I saw this man standing there, that they hold the stop sign when there's roadworks. And then they turn around and it says go and then stop. And I was like, "Oh, that's a really tough job on a day like this." But then he was messing with another worker. And then they both started laughing. And I thought, wow, that's amazing. And
when
I
I
look
have,
for moments like that and just
yes,
contagious.
yes, when I hear laughter, those are those moments that remind me there's still joy in this world. There are
Yes,
still things to laugh at.
that's
There's
what it
still,
does. Yeah.
yeah, yes, it really helps. Thank you for reminding me.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up and for
Yeah.
everything you shared today. It's so empowering. And just before we finish, your book is coming up.
Yes.
That's amazing. The 16th of March.
Yes, of 16th of March
Right.
officially, but if you create a pre-order through Amazon, I think you'll get your book within a week.
What can we find in your book?
In the original, I mean, the first book, the main book, A Therapist's No BS Guide to Feeling Less Alone, you are going to find the heart method. It's a 5-step method to navigate through loneliness. You're going to find chapters that address generational trauma, inner child, reparenting. You're going to hear client case stories, real life people sharing their stories of how they experienced maybe childhood emotional neglect, loss, grief. And the thing is, some of these stories you think, oh, it sounds so sad, but you hear the resilience and the change. And this book, when you finish, is not something that's going to make you feel sad or even stuck in loneliness. It's going to help you not only connect to yourself on a deeper level, but it's going to remind you of those infinite possibilities within you that you can connect to through play, joy, reframing, reauthoring your narrative, finding the tools to work with your nervous system. Something as simple as taking a longer exhale. When you breathe in, you inhale through your nose. And as you exhale out, like pushing out that breath and finding ways to regulate your nervous system, you're going to finish this book feeling better, energized, and I think more hopeful of I can reauthor and reclaim my narrative in a way that feels good. I don't have to stay stuck in loneliness. Maybe you'll look back at the moments you felt lonely before. You're like, oh, those were so necessary for me to get to this point where I am now, and let that be a springboard. And the workbook is a wonderful place where you're going to find journal prompts to help you go deeper into the work. As I mentioned earlier for the inner child chapter, another prompt is, when did you first learn to minimize your needs? What belief did you adopt to survive emotionally? What would you say to the child version of you who was trying so hard to be okay? And what kind of care do you want to offer that child now? So, journal prompts like that just to help you again create that bridge and connect to yourself on a deeper level. And my goal and hope is just for all of us to feel just a little less alone in this world and a little bit more connected to our true selves.
That is beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So excited to read it, to get it, to read it. And I think that's what, when we all do the work, his work, I think it really shifts the energy and the world just becomes a little bit better. So,
Yes,
you know,
I never thought that talking about loneliness would help me meet so many incredible people. And I never thought it would actually make me feel happy, like feeling so much less alone. But the human connections that I've been able to make through writing this book like today, it's euphoric. Like I have no words, but just to say I'm so grateful. So thank you for sharing this time with
thank
me.
you. Thank you. Really grateful. Thank you so much, Sylvia.
Thank you, Mia.